few weeks ago, Call of Duty Black Ops 7, the 22nd entry in the mainline franchise made by 11 different studios, was released to the world. So far, it hasn't been going great.
Wait,
Okay, how do I start this? A code of conduct? My brother, I'm playing the campaign!
none of it was laughably bad. Laughter was the furthest thing from my mind, actually.
It is easily the most miserable experience.
Now, we're dropping space machetes out of the sky on Menendez while they blast mariachi music because he's a spicy quesadilla.
It's reportedly the lowest selling entry in the franchise's history, with dipping player numbers, AI slop everywhere you look, even a campaign so bad it actually has broken long-term and newer fans of the series. Zombies is apparently okay, but I still have BLOPS 3 zombies and a dedicated modding community to lean on. You're not going to see me play it anytime soon. That would be like handing my money to the devil. Except if I handed my actual money to the actual devil, at least he would just burn it, so that way no one wins. But as a spectator, it has been fascinating watching the discourse. I don't touch these modern Call of Duties anymore. I care about my hard drive's safety, but I'll still boot up the old games from time to time. Though because of Black Ops 7 being the newest low for the franchise, it got me thinking, what was the worst Call of Duty before Black Ops 7? Now people are going to blurt out one of the following. Modern Warfare 3 2023 is the worst game in the entire franchise. No, dummy, the worst Call of Duty of all time is Call of Duty Vanguard because of woke. No, idiot, dummy. It has to be Infinite Warfare because Titanfall. Wait, what was Black Ops 4 again? What is that? You remember that time where you can be a black female Nazi in the multiplayer for World War II? Also, that game had bad story and sucks. Kevin Spacey's Advanced Spacey is the worst Spacey I ever spacey. Ghost gave me cancer, made my wife leave me, and made me commit arson of the testicular region. See, these are reasonable answers, but to me, they aren't necessarily correct either, because in one way or another, maybe minus BLOPS 4, they do follow the formula for what Call of Duty is known for. An action-intensive, entertaining campaign with memorable moments, characters, and set pieces, with an intense, exhilarating, and near addictive multiplayer to follow. You might not necessarily come out of a bad Call of Duty liking the story, but you could laugh at the moments for being so ridiculous that they will live on in your memory. The train crash, press F to pay respects, dog. A bad Call of Duty has to be something so bad that even the developers who made it have completely disregarded its existence, featuring mechanics, storytelling elements, and characters so forgettable that any semblance of its history has been erased by both the game's following and prior. Notably, it has to have the cardinal video game sin: boredom. And I'm not going to include the mainline games. They don't count, and we'd be here forever. In my mind, there is only one Call of Duty that fits this description. I'm gonna get so many comments, man. Call of Duty 3 is the first Treyarch-developed entry made for both the 6th and 7th generation consoles at the end of 2006. In fact, it was only made for those consoles. So to this day, it is the only mainline game in the franchise's history to not have a PC port, which is bizarre already because the original Infinity Ward title was a PC exclusive. But Call of Duty 2 sold gangbusters on PC and the 360, so we need a follow-up. I'm assuming the meeting between Activision and Treyarch went something like this. Hey, so Call of Duty 2 is selling a lot, like a lot. We need you guys to work on the next entry. Okay, well, we just launched Call of Duty 2 Big Red 1 for the 6th gen consoles. Yeah, but that was for the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox. We don't care about them anymore. But we spent a lot of money getting the Band of Brothers actors to appear in Big Red 1, and we need time to figure out what we're going to do. Look, either make the game, or we're firing everyone. Well, we have this NGL engine that we used before. Great. Game launches in 8 months. Have a trailer ready for E3 2006. Time was limited, and Treyarch was given quite the short end of the stick. So what do? They can't do something risky because Infinity Ward is working on that Modern Warfare thing that will absolutely flop, according to Activision. They couldn't use that sexy new IW engine yet. They could have used id Tech 3 or Renderware, but that might have looked too old for people on the newer consoles. But they did have their in-house NGL engine, which could be used for the PS3 and 360 versions, and then downscaled for everything else. But then they had to figure out the campaign and where to set it. They couldn't do bigger, redder, onerer since First Company's story was pretty much over. So they focused on the tale of the Normandy breakthrough and the road to liberating Paris. Bring back the Americans and the British. Prepare the Brits with the French resistance. Now let's throw in the Canadians and Polish. Can't use the Russians. We have bigger plans for them. Now have all of them encircling and eliminating the Nazis in the French countryside to open up a path to the Paris liberation. But don't actually include the Paris liberation. Slap it all together and you get Call of Duty 3, the one COD that became forgotten by both time and the fanbase. To be fair, this was before Vince Zampella discovered Titanfall. Back then, Infinity Ward was seen as the golden studio. Fans were under the belief that they could trust IW because they could do no wrong. After all, COD 1 and 2 are marvelous games. This studio is going somewhere. Then the fans saw COD 3 and really didn't get it. Another World War II shooter? Why does it look so weird? Why is the multiplayer going for a Battlefield theme? This sucks. Meanwhile, Infinity Ward's Modern Warfare would be unveiled a year later. Not only was that a colossal fangasm, it also shifted the tide for games as a whole. Zampella and Jason West, you magnificent bastards, you've done it again. Infinity Ward might as well have dropped an actual nuke on the real-world Chambois. Nobody wanted to think about World War II, let alone play yet another World War II shooter, so quickly, Call of Duty 3 was left to be stuck in the mud. With all that being said, let's first talk about the visuals. As mentioned earlier, Call of Duty 3 runs on Treyarch's own NGL engine. To say there's a noticeable difference between this and Call of Duty 2 is a pretty major understatement. Character models have significantly more definition in their faces and uniforms. Guns have more touches that one can point out, like the engravings on the MP40 or M1 Garand. Even the wood grain sticks out a little bit more. And of course, more destruction. A lot more destruction. While not everything can be blasted to smithereens, Treyarch did quite a few new destructibles to enhance the chaos. Certain boxes can be turned to splinters, barrels can roll around, even the explosive ones, and of course, the ragdolls. Ragdoll-palooza. Though some of the aesthetic choices have aged pretty poorly. There is a good amount of color, uniforms can be vivid, and there are certain scenes that genuinely look really good. But this comes at a cost of visual clarity. There's a very prevalent tan filter that is par for the setting and era of games. For me at least, the problem comes in the heat of combat. Soldiers, both Allied and Axis, do appear to be darker than in the game before it. Of course, this is to showcase that the NGL engine is capable of higher fidelity details. The problem is that in the heat of combat, there are many instances where everyone kind of looks the same. Germans almost look as if they are wearing the same uniform as your allies, and this gets compounded when in darker environments. Sure, you can rely on the green name tags, but when you're in an enclosed space or even fighting in a large group outside, there are plenty of times where, in the heat of the moment, I accidentally end up shooting a friendly, especially in darker spaces. To compound on the visual clarity problem, while I do like seeing the engravings on the weapons, the weapon models themselves are kind of large and almost too in your face. Like with the MP40, it almost feels like the butt of the gun is pressed up to my character's mouth. I'm in support of butt munching, this isn't really what I had in mind. Also, if you ever wondered why the Thompson looks so different here compared to other entries, they actually use the same model they used for Big Red 1. As for the gameplay, it plays like COD, though there are a few additions here that have carried over to future titles. For example, grenade cooking and throwing back makes its debut here. When you pull on the pin on a lethal grenade, a little red ring shows how long you have to throw it before you become a living firework. And if the enemy is throwing nades at you, you can throw them back. The decision of having X or square being the button to pick up the live nade is a choice, but it works fine enough. Speaking of choices, there will be multiple paths to choose to complete an objective. It's not super major, but these allow for the player different ways to push an objective. Say if they're stuck with one, they can try for the other. These are nice advancements to the overall gameplay, but they come with a cost. Some pretty annoying, pretty infuriating costs. I did. Is there another German? The battlefield is so empty. Those were the Shermans. They're dead now. They're there. Do I go here? What? Game broken? Are you fucking I already teased with the visuals, but there's a weird clunkiness to the gameplay. Your character feels heavier and slower. You especially feel it when rotating the camera. There's a very noticeable slow wind-up when turning your head, and then it gets jerky. The lack of snappiness can be especially felt during gameplay. Either long or close range, I'm fighting with the camera trying to get kills, but due to the sluggish nature of the camera, it becomes frustrating. There are plenty of moments where the auto-aim would be locking onto an enemy I already killed or just nothing, and the slow responsiveness would end up getting me killed. I try to fool around with the sensitivity in a matter of ways, but to no luck. Even on max sensitivity, it still feels weird, and you cannot turn off the auto-aim. So you get this unnatural sluggy combat that becomes both off-putting and frustrating as you go on. There's also issues with the movement as well. Your character just feels so much slower. And it's not because there is no sprint. The way that your character moves just feels so much more heavy. Part of it comes from the terrain. There are plenty of times where a small beam of wood or an invisible wall would prevent me from moving. Sometimes it gets ridiculous, like with this barrel. You have to shoot it out of your way if it's in your path. NPCs don't have to worry about it, they just phase through the obstacle. You want to know how bad this movement is? It lacks vaulting over objects. When you're traversing a level, there are many times where you either jump down to the next segment or the more egregious tiny ramp of boxes. So this leads to the level design being obtuse to traverse. What looks jumpable is not, or invisible walls where you least expect. It's just clunky. What? What? Oh, for fuck's sake. Even the gunplay doesn't feel right. This could be because of the camera controls or the movement or both. It's not because there's no bullet pen through walls. I mean, literally the guy I'm shooting at, ADS or close range, is not actively taking damage even though I'm looking right at him. This especially happens when using machine guns. Because of the weird movement and just the overall lack of visual feedback, there were plenty of times where I felt like I shot someone, but didn't and ended up dying. I felt like I was losing my mind at certain points. Could this be because my aim on the controller is just that bad from years on PC? Well, no, not really, because I booted up COD 2 immediately after on my Xbox, and it was a clear night and day difference. Visual clarity, distinct factions, and the gunplay was just so much more familiar and consistent. I knew when to aim down and when not to, and the results were as expected. That consistency is gone in COD 3. On top of all of that, the game is incredibly buggy nowadays. Oh my god! He's still not. No, I don't believe that for a second. Okay, he's dead. He's standing on top of the mortar. His foot is blocking my view. Left? Oh. Hi. Alright, who's gonna shoot first? Who are you gonna take? This is amazing. Is he actually gonna follow me? Let's see. Yep, he's following. At first, I thought this was an emulation issue on the fault of the Series X, until I swapped in my 360 and it's about the same but with increased frame drops. The overall sound quality is a mixed bag. Some characters will only be talking on one channel even though they're center stage for the player.
I'm McCullen. 2 rules. Rule 1. You're no good to me dead. Rule 2. What difference does it make? You'll all probably end up dead anyway.
Well, that was sure inspiring.
You want inspiration, Huxley? Read a poem.
Characters, as you heard, repeat their lines quite often. I think I've heard Dixon say, "Out of here! Move!" so much it might as well be a mental tattoo. There are good sounds. Guns do sound appropriate, about the same as 2's, maybe slightly less. Though the music is pretty forgettable. It's just standard World War II orchestras, which is normal for the setting, but still. Compared to the game prior, it's just not as strong. By far, the worst part of the game might be the QTEs. First, in the franchise. For the most part, I don't particularly mind QuickTime events. If used correctly, they can actually add into the overall experience of the game, making them justifiable. Here, though, they come off as desperate for something new and annoying. I never thought I'd be tired of placing satchel charges, and yet here we are. It's not all satchel charges. In one mission, you have 2 whole different QTEs. These are turning a valve and operating a crane. There's still an opening right there! Though I am leaving out one other type of QTE. Is this the first knifing thing? It is. My gun! You may be wondering why this was included. Well, you can blame that on the PS3 and Wii. Those 2 platforms featured motion controls. Sony and Nintendo wanted to show off, you get it. The PS3 version had you using 6-axis to melee and shake off the angry German man off your face. That's about it, and it works well. The Wii version, on the other hand, I still have nightmares about that one. The annoying part about these ones especially is that narratively, they don't make any sense. And I'd argue that 3 of the 4 times these encounters happen, your squad mates are literally right fucking there watching you struggle. Oh, we had ray tracing all the way back there. Really? Where is my squad? Where's Keith? What is he doing? What
What
the?
you waiting for?
What are you waiting for? With all this combined, the overall gameplay experience is quite shocking. There are moments where it feels like a classic COD, but then many more where this is distinctly an isolated incident. I don't blame Treyarch at the time. They literally made this in 8 months. It sucks that this was the victim of what is very obvious crunch. The sad part, especially to me, is how much opportunity there was available on a narrative level. Having the focus being on the breakthrough past Normandy is something that has been done before. Americans in French towns and British deep behind enemy lines aren't entirely new in video games, but having the Brits work directly with the resistance members, featuring the Canadian involvement and the Polish revenge are topics not always featured. There's even nuance that could have been explored better if the game had more time in the oven. McCullen, your squad lead for the first couple American missions, suffering from some sort of mental crisis during active duty, is an interesting element. The issue is that you see it on display for one moment in the first mission, and then shoved in multiple times on the third American mission. You could argue that McCullen witnessed so much during D-Day or in the weeks prior to St. Lo, but then we're entering the show and tell territory of writing, and McCullen lacks both. How it's presented in the game's finished stage, it almost feels like a light switch, which isn't how PTSD develops. The character arc for Private Baron is pretty pathetic. At first I kind of felt bad for the guy because he kept getting yelled at and called a weak little bitch because he wanted to protect the radio, until he dies in the stupidest way.
I have to call in the artillery strikes. Go at her! Form up on me!
Don't move! Baron, you stay out there, it's suicide!
I'm not a coward. I'm not leaving my post.
Your post is about to be shot all to pieces!
My job's to call in artillery strikes. I'm not running away from it.
You're running away from bullets, no job!
I'm not running anywhere. I'm not afraid.
Stupid Canuck!
What happened to the Canuck?
Stupidity.
Yeah, I agree. Call of Duty 3 isn't necessarily the worst in the franchise. Not so good or so bad that it lives in the hearts and minds of players in one form or another. It's just mundane. Mundane to the point where you forget about its existence. In fairness to the devs, spinning this together in such a short amount of time is an accomplishment, but it shouldn't be one that should be pioneered. I'm at least glad that it pushed the team so hard to make World at War the way that that game is. A brutal, chilling, and disturbing reminder that there's no grace in war, regardless of side. Playing that right after COD 3 displays the pure frustration that Treyarch had because of what they couldn't include. But at least they were given another opportunity to craft a bloody and gibby middle finger to the naysayers. So there it is. Call of Duty 3, the worst in the franchise. Right up until Black Ops 7, which... What were they thinking? I mean, first off, they bring back Mendez, right? They bring back Mendez, and he's just... It's not even the real Mendez. Like, they had this idea for this whole AI arc and everything, and it could have been interesting, but no, they just throw in all this random BS. I mean, I thought the Skibbity toilet thing was kind of overblown, but it's still stupid. And why does Woods turn into a demon flower from Elden Ring? I just don't get it. Like, and then the co-op campaign.